Hey team, and welcome to the TeamCPNZ Quick Connect podcast, where you can stay informed, keep connected, and learn from each other along the way as well. I'm your team captain, Richard Greer, and today on the show we're going to be talking with Gretchen Williamson, who completed the Berlin Marathon a few weeks ago. Gretchen's based on Wiaheke Island, and running the hilly trails are a big part of a build-up to this event. We're going to share sort of more about that epic event and what the Berlin Marathon was about and how Gretchen's event unfolded. So, yeah, looking forward to that. You're listening to episode 20 of this Quick Connect podcast, and this is number 156 of these podcasts that we've done over the last few years. So, but before we get to Gretchen, a bit of a make sure you check out the flash new Team CP kit. I'm not sure if you know about this or have seen this in the news recently, but this fancy new kit that I'm showing on the screen now for those who are watching is you've got to the end of next week to order this, and it's going to arrive before Christmas thanks to Tenelli. So that's coming up, and there's also a run top as well. I'm just showing the sort of cycle kit at the moment. And the other thing is, if you don't know about this, is that our partners benefits, our membership card is something that if you're coached by us, basically all the different partners we have in regards to Gilbo, the Sunglass Guys, Giant Bikes, Tenelli, Evo Cycles, Frontrunner Colombo, That's It, Negative Split, Pure, etc. We've got discount codes for all of those. So, so if you want a bit of a help for that, make sure you've got this, and then you can jump on the link on our website and find out what those codes are and go from there. So make sure you find out about that. And probably the other one that's kind of happening at the moment, we're just dialing in Coast to Coast support crew. So if Coast to Coast is kind of on the cards and want to kind of know more about it, or you've done it in the past and want to be involved again, we are doing support crew for a whole bunch of internationals in February next year. So, and we're looking for people to sort of join the team to be part of it with us to help that weekend. So jump in and let us know if you're keen for that, and we'll kind of come up with a game plan for race day. But without further ado, let's bring Gretchen online and let's start talking some fun stuff around adventures and flying overseas and running marathons and things. How are you doing, Gretchen?
Yeah, really good, thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. 3.5 weeks ago, is that right? From the Berlin Marathon?
That'll be right. Yep. Absolutely.
On reflection of that event, how are you feeling now? The dust is kind of settled. Like, have we got a rosy afterglow? Are you still talking about it? Are people still willing to listen?
I've stopped wearing my medal to as many places, but yeah, people are still willing to listen. I think I've still really got the afterglow, and when I look at photos or things that have the Brandenburg Gate in it, I still get the tingle of how I felt as I approached the gates towards the end of the marathon. It was such an incredible experience, but I think anybody who runs marathons knows that last bit is, where things can either look great or look really ugly, and I felt really good. But yeah, approaching that gate is something that will really live on in my memory for a very, very long time.
How good. My question was, have you been wearing your medal lately? And I think that's something that people don't do well enough, is actually celebrate the fact that you've done this thing that's pretty awesome. So good to hear that you did wear that medal a little bit afterwards. Did it make it to work?
Yeah, no, it hasn't made it to work. But Medal Monday, I took my son to the zoo in Berlin on the Monday, and everybody had their medals on. It was fantastic.
Oh, how good. That's a real badge of honor, isn't it? That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about the Berlin Marathon. What was the crowd like? How many people were actually on the start line with you?
So I think the numbers is just over 54,000 people completed the marathon.
Oh, completed. Yeah. How many people start?
Completed. I think it was close to 55. I think, and I guess people drop out beforehand or whatever it is.
Yeah, true.
I was obviously, I wasn't in any of the elite groups. So we were the last corral to start, and I don't know, 4 or 5 before us, the elites, and then 4 or 5 corrals. And there were 10,000 people in my corral. So it gives you an idea of what it looks like. Yeah. Wow. But incredible organisation. I mean, you cannot fault the fact that you've got that many people. You get them to the start line, and we still could find each other. We could, get to that start. They play music. They hype the crowd. It's this incredible experience. and you start, you head down from the Brandenburg Gate area and you're facing the Victory Column. So you've got parks either side of you, and then this clear runway looking down towards the Victory Column. So it's an incredible setting. And I saw there was two girls standing beside myself and a couple of the other ladies I was with, and the other ladies had on New Zealand tops, and I heard this girl saying to a friend, "Oh, they're from New Zealand," and that was their first marathon, these two girls. But I said to them, "Oh, where are you from? Where have you travelled from?" She goes, "We are from Berlin," and I was like, "Yeah, of course, not all of us come thousands of miles to run a marathon."
Okay. So they were Kiwis living in Berlin, were they? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay, right. Yeah, fantastic. So, I mean, how did you go getting to the start line with that many people trying to get to the start line as well? How was that in the morning?
Yeah, I mean, you just saw waves and waves of people walking down there. And we went about, we wanted to get into the corral an hour beforehand. Well, you were recommended to do that. So we've got to be there for 10 because we didn't start until 11:15. Our hotel was a couple of Ks away, so we just walked. And when you look back, on the day, I think I'd done something like 51 Ks in walking and running that day, because you've got all that admin, right? To get there, to get to the corral, get out, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's a surreal feeling walking down there, and you can just see people coming from every direction heading to where you're going to go for a run.
Yes, how good. That's amazing. And you're starting at lunchtime. What was the weather like? How was that? And also you have to manage breakfast, which is not like an early morning crack of dawn breakfast. Almost you're having morning tea as well.
Yeah, that's right. So it was warm, but it wasn't hot. It was about 18 degrees, I think. It was beautiful, clear morning. And yeah, I mean, I struggle at the best of times with fueling. So I had breakfast, but then I didn't eat anything else after that. And so, as you say, we started, it was 11 pretty much on the dot when I crossed the line to start. And it was really hot. It felt really hot that initial kind of hour and a half. I was like, oh no, please don't be this hot the whole time. But then you moved into shady areas in different parts of the city, obviously. So yeah, it wasn't too bad in terms of that.
You were starting with 10,000 others. There's 50-odd thousand others on the course at the same time. How busy is it? Like the Christchurch Marathon, you start and you're zigzagging for the first K or so before you find some sort of clear space to actually do some running. Are you zigzagging the whole day? How was that?
I didn't find that. I mean, I had, I know a couple of people who were, going for pace and time, who were around that 3-hour mark. I know they found it very competitive on there. For us, I didn't find that. I stuck with the paces. They were quite easy to find for the first half. And I didn't find that we were too tight against the paces or anything like that. So I think by the time you get to the last corral, we're kind of the party people at the back, perhaps. We're a bit more relaxed and a bit more friendly about that because we're not necessarily heading out for our PBs. So for me, I didn't have any issues at all, and I really didn't feel like I was squeezed in or anything like that. One of the things that's quite clear in my memory, strangely, is the sound of all the feet, because you can just hear feet the whole time. And then, of course, when you go through the aid stations or the hydration areas, a lot of people have their gels and then they chuck the gels and the sticky feet. So that sound, it's quite strange. And of course, a lot of people have those new, the new trainers as well with the big soles on them, and you can really hear that noise.
The difference of those as well.
Which is not something, of course, I can't hear any feet on Wiaheke. So that was one of my sort of things when I was running, and I didn't have headphones. They say you're not allowed them, but of course a lot of people still do. But that sound is really memorable.
The stampede.
Yeah, exactly.
And you mentioned that you were in the party corral of you guys mixing it up with each other. So were there others that you kind of connected with, ended up running with? Other people wearing dinosaur suits or flamingo outfits? What was going on around you?
Absolutely. It started from the get-go for me. And when I was flying from Auckland to Berlin, I flew with Qatar via Doha. And when I was in the layover, I noticed there was a lady and she had marathon kind of stuff on her bag.
Yep.
And so I said to her, oh, are you going to Berlin by any chance for the marathon? And she was. So I spent the 4 hours of the layover with Margaret. Margaret's 74, and she was off to get her 6th major, which was Berlin for her. And she's run a lot of marathons and walked a lot of marathons. So she was fantastic company for me, you know, and a great reminder that, you know, this is ageless, right? If you can keep your body moving, you can keep doing this. So funnily enough, when I'm standing in the corral with 10,000 other people and I hadn't seen Margaret since I'd landed in Berlin, I saw Margaret.
Oh, really? Oh, my goodness. How good. Yep.
And she was walking to the bathroom. She had a roll of toilet paper because she knows that they always run out in the Portaloos.
Okay.
That's some good marathon experience. So she was very popular. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's Margaret. And she turned around and gave me a big hug. And so, yeah, I met her. And then I went with Marathon World Tours. And I think there was about 24 of us in the group. And I had made friends with a couple of the ladies in my group and some others that were on the same flight through the WhatsApp group. And so I went to the start line with some of them. So strangely, you see people, and I find that really funny that, you know, as we talked about 54,000 people, that you could still bump into them. To your point about the party corral or what my speed group, I crossed the line with the guys who were doing David Goggins Hard, and they had carried a log for the entire thing. And they dropped and did their press ups at the finish line. I was like, you know, perhaps they could have carried me for a little bit. But,
like, we don't need a log. Like, we could have done a bit more useful carrying, couldn't we? Yeah. So I mean, and I met while I was out there, because you get chatting to people. I met quite a few people who were doing it for their 50th as well, because it was 50 years of the Berlin Marathon. I met three different people. They were celebrating their 50th with the 50 years of Berlin. That's so cool. You know, people are chatty and people are friendly and everyone's in it together, and that's the experience. Yes, brilliant. You mentioned about the majors. This is one of those 6 major marathons, Berlin. Have you run any others?
I haven't. I've only run the Melbourne Marathon, so this was my 2nd marathon. Last year, as you know, I wanted to do the New York Marathon, but I ended up with an injury. I didn't think I was going to do any more marathons after this one. I'd said this was my last one, but it's not my last. Absolutely not. After meeting Margaret, and we were talking about, she said my coffin's going to be really heavy to get off the ground because it's got so many medals in it. I thought, this is something I want too. I'm pretty keen to do the 6 majors now. A lot of the ladies in the same tour group as me, we're knocking those off in differing ways. I put my name in for the ballot for Chicago because I think it's one of the easier ballots, but I've also put my name down with the tour group for New York as well, just to see where I land next year. But they're pretty inspiring, right? It's such an incredible experience, and I like, you know, one of the things I love about running is that reward. You know, it's very markable, and so now you've got 6 other things that you can mark your way through. And
the adventure that goes around that as well is pretty cool, and the shared experience of that's hard, but then the real jubilation after that of that hard thing that you've kind of done together and met these people that all of a sudden you got Margaret that you know, and you can.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. And I like there's sort of a selfishness about running, right? Because it's just for you quite often. You know, it's not a team sport, but there's still an aspect of teamness to that when you're in an event and when you do these things and you land in this foreign country or this completely, you know, it's all new to all of us. And after I got back, of course, and I put some posts on my LinkedIn and things about it, one of my colleagues reached out to me, and he had done Berlin 3 times. The 3rd time was last year, and he had done it first 40 years ago when there was still East and West, right? So when Berlin was still East and West Germany. So, you know, it's quite cool because you can have these conversations and you can bond over it with people you didn't even know were into it.
Yes, because you've got that shared connection there as well. You mentioned that after Melbourne and then doing this one, that this was probably going to be your last to tick the box, but then you said actually maybe it's not. So what's changed for that? Because that's quite a big change. How was Melbourne, and then how did this I guess, compare?
Yeah, maybe I've done some growing up between the two in terms of the 2 years. I'm not sure. I don't even want to grow up, but maybe I have.
Yeah. All right.
I think I'm a type A personality, and it's pretty obvious. I drive myself pretty hard, from a professional and a business sense, and I think I'd turned Melbourne into that as well. I was determined to get a certain time. I was determined to do it in a certain way. And I'm not sure that I necessarily got much joy out of it. I did it, and I ticked the box on those achievements that I wanted to get. And I went with some friends, and that was fantastic and all those sorts of things. But if you look at the photos, I don't look very happy.
It's a bit of type 2 fun going suffering. Okay, I understand. Yeah.
Berlin, I went into thinking I'm just so grateful to be able to do it. And obviously we had done a lot of training and preparation, and you laid out everything for me, and I felt like I'd ticked everything off. And that my achievement was going to be finishing it. It wasn't time bound. It was that I wanted to enjoy it. And I really did, despite, there was a period where I felt very nauseous. Largely, I enjoyed it. There is something so incredibly special of coming around the corner, and it's completely different to what the last corner was. There's a group of children singing in a choir, or you go under a bridge and there's drummers, or there's a string quartet around the next corner. Like, it's outrageous how amazing it is. And then obviously the crowd and the people and things like that. So for me, it gave me back my passion for running, or my love of it, I guess, which I had felt like perhaps I lost when I was turning it into this competition, and a competition for one, because nobody else cares, right? So I'm back.
Yeah, fantastic. That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about that. Maybe let's go back a step. So preparation, how did you prepare? Like, obviously you were running a lot around Wiaheke Island, and I think you mentioned the other day you've probably seen every nook and cranny of Wiaheke Island. How did you prepare? What were some of the things that you did before to help you to say, oh, yep, I think I'm ready to go?
Yeah, I mean, Waiheke is great for hill running. There's only a couple of streets that are flat, so that was where my speed work went around those blocks with my little dog Teddy, because it's dark when I train, because I've got a young child, or youngest child, and I work full time, and I've got to commute to the city and all those other bits and pieces. So I run at 5:30 in the morning. Waiheke, fabulous. Did a lot of training on Wiaheke, did a lot of trail running on Wiaheke, but of course Berlin is flat. So hill running, you're used to stopping, and walking some of the hills because they're just too tough otherwise. So I came into the city a few times on the Fridays and ran the waterfront because it's flat. Completely different mindset for me as well, not training with my dog, and not training with some of my friends from Trail Tribe on Wiaheke. So, mentally I was trying to get into that sort of headspace that you are always moving, that it's flat, that there aren't those kind of the bits that I know so well as well. So I did the running training, and I did Pilates as well, because I'm inclined to lock up a little bit in the hips and things. And I did strength. So I tried to keep it well-rounded. And I like to throw myself in the sea a bit too.
Oh, that's a great thing. And as a result of that, you were injury-free, because that was a thing
100%.
that knocked you out of New York. So that's pretty cool as well, to be able to go and enjoy the adventure of it without sort of worrying about your hips going to lock up, etc.
Yeah, no, absolutely injury-free. And that is, again, one of the keys, I think, to this if you want to keep doing it. And I had COVID not long before the Wellington. I wanted to go down and do the Wellington half marathon as part of my kind of build-up. And so that meant I couldn't do that. I could only do 10Ks. But I sat beside a guy on the plane who was trying to do 100 marathons in 10 years. And we had this massive in-depth discussion about how could you possibly achieve that. And he said to me, the reason why you got the injury before New York is because you were pushing yourself too hard. And when you push too hard, things will break. And I said, yeah, you pretty much assessed me very well in that moment. It's exactly how I operate. Push until I break. And so he was talking about, what he does, and that the marathons are his long runs, basically, because he's got to do 10 of them in a year, essentially, or some more because of COVID and things like that. And that also helped to reset my mindset. I think sometimes when you've got an event or there's something that you're training for, you only think about that one. You don't think about, well, what do I want to do in 5 years' time or 10 years' time or 15, And so I think that really helped me get some perspective.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. So tell us about the finish line, getting towards the finish. You talked about the Brandenburg Gates earlier. How was that? You had your son, Fletch, and husband, Richard, out there on course as well that you managed to spot. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the great things about big cities, of course, is the metro. So they could hop on the train and pop up in different places for me, which was pretty special. So they were at the halfway mark, and then they were not long before the Brandenburg Gate. You sort of go past the Brandenburg Gate and then you come back around again. You've got to muck around for a couple of Ks to get through. Yeah. And of course, when they'd sent me at 20, I was very determined that I was going to throw up at that point because my stomach was so sore. But so then I came along that flat heading towards the Brandenburg Gate, and my son spotted me and he's like, "There's Mummy. Mummy's going to make it." And I was like, "Mummy is going to make it. God damn it, Mummy's going to make it." And then I bumped into one of the other ladies who was on my tour, who'd done a lot of marathons, but she had done the marathon in Croatia the weekend before, Valentina, and she was, struggling a little bit. She had a sore back, and I was like, well, we're going to make it. We're going to get to the end now. So we just walked it out to get there together, and I love the photos because we look so happy. And
I've got some of those photos. Really actually, I'm going to throw some of those up. Talk us through this.
Yeah, so
it's a finish line.
Her
actually, I'm going to go back a step. And then you've also, two together. And then for some of those listening, this is a photo of the Brandenburg Gate. Is that just before the finish line?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you in that photo? I tried to spot you.
I think if you can see the guy with the log, I'm probably not far away from him.
Careful.
So meeting her, and as I run with other people when I train, but I also did a lot of my training on my own. And so I'd thought, well, I'm just doing the marathon on my own. That's fine. And I did run with another lady from the tour for quite a period of time as well. And then when I saw Valentina, that was incredible to see someone there, because I thought, well, this is really neat because we've got such a little percentage to go, but it's also the most it's the feelings part of it, right?
That's right. So was she really battling at that stage when you come across her?
Yeah. But it's funny, isn't it? Because you all go through those highs and lows. When I had last seen her, I was really battling, and that was in that mid patch where I felt awful. But then for some reason, well, not for some reason, but from 36 Ks onwards, I actually felt quite good. Maybe I'd broken the back of it. I've got a mathematical brain, so I'd worked out the percentages by that point. Okay. And I felt really good, and I felt really buoyant. And my husband said exactly the same thing. Rich was like, you were in great shape, much better shape than you were in Melbourne. Your head was up, your back was up, and eyes on the prize. And so that's why it's probably so memorable for me, because I felt good and I felt positive, and I felt kind of helpful as well, or useful, because, we'd been able to band together and get it done.
Yeah, good stuff. And that's cool, isn't it? That, again, as we talked about, that shared experience. What happened afterwards? You still you did a bit of helping out, getting people back to where they needed to go as well. What was happening there?
So I had to Valentina didn't feel very well, so I got her to the medic. And then, of course, I don't think I mentioned this before, but at the aid stations, for most of the marathon until the late stages, the supplies are water, tea with honey, apples and bananas. Okay. I don't know why you would want tea with honey, but apparently people do. And so it's like this obsession. You keep seeing the tea and you're like, for goodness sake, please put something else on here. And then so I took Valentina around to go to the medic, and the medic said, "Oh, could you go and get some cups of tea?" I was like, I can't believe this. It's still the cups of tea. I said, of course I can, but please tell me it's not far. But anyway, so we got her fixed up, and then she wanted to go and meet her partner. And then I found another one of the ladies who was struggling with her leg, and we needed to get back to the hotel, right? So, and it's a couple of Ks, and I thought, I'm not sure I can get us down to the metro and back out again, all those stairs. And then I spotted a guy with a tuk-tuk, and gosh, Gretchen could still move quite fast, so I ran for that tuk-tuk as quickly as I could. 5,000 others trying to get it as well. Ran for the tuk-tuk, and he sort of ummed and ahed, and he said, "Oh, I think it's probably, I'll have to charge you €25." Well, Pauline, she was in the back of that tuk-tuk before he got the rest of the price out because we were out of there. And so that was really cool because he could weave down the streets. He lifted the signs, because a lot of the streets were blocked off, and it was a really fun experience. She said to me, "This is a highlight of my day, Gretchen, because, I found the marathon. She'd found it really tough and taken her a really long time. So it was neat to be able to, have some fun there at the end."
Good stuff. That's awesome. And just on that, this is a picture I show for everybody. There's this cooked toast picture. How toasted were you after this one? So number 1 is burnt toast. You've absolutely cooked, versus number 9 is actually just a little bit lightly toasted. Where were you at on the scale of how toasted were you at the finish line of Berlin Marathon?
I reckon I'm somewhere in the middle. I really do. I mean, if you'd said to me, "Oh, you need to run another 5Ks," I probably would have given you a quick punch. But but if you'd said to me, "Oh, you've got another couple of Ks," I probably could have kept going for another couple of Ks. So, and, I've mentioned my son before, but my son's 7. So if you've got a 7-year-old boy, you know that they're like a marathon every day. So I was in reasonable shape to do things with him that evening and the next day. And, I felt good. And,
awesome.
So it's good.
So we're going to give you a number 5, are we? Is that what we're going to give you?
I think so.
That's good. That's an honest effort. We didn't go too slow, but then you definitely know you've done something.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So what's next? Where are you off to next? What's the next plan, Gretchen?
These are good questions. I'm still going to do the Taniwha in a couple of weeks' time because I do really enjoy the trail running, which, Wiaheke, I get a lot of that. Yep. And then I have to think about next year. So depending on whether it's Chicago in October or New York in November, either one, I'll probably want to put something in the diary between those two things.
Yep.
So I turn 50 next year. So I just want to keep going, want to keep moving, want to stay fit. I feel like I'm in really good shape in terms of my overall fitness, and I just want to keep tapping away at that. Yeah,
that's awesome. Great to feel healthy and well, and being able to get out there and do these adventures. And your job is a really fun job of going, okay, what's the rest of summer going to look like for me, and what sort of things do I want to do? So that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good job. Brilliant, Gretchen. Hey, thank you so much for sharing your story and getting a bit of an insight of what the Berlin Marathon and a marathon that's got 54,000 other people running with you feels like. So, well done on your training. Well done on going and having an awesome day and finishing it well. And thank you for sharing that with us. It's so good.
Yeah, and obviously thank you to you too, because, I know we do a lot of our stuff by phone and, you put things in the app and all those sorts of things. But, it kept it interesting for me. It kept me on task, but it never felt pressured. And I think that's a big part of it. It's taking that pressure off yourself and finding the enjoyment. And I really felt like the training and the way that worked did that for me. And that's what this longevity game's about, right? And so, I'm really grateful for that. Thank you.
Yeah, good job. No, that's awesome. Thank you so much for that. And we'll look forward to seeing what that next adventure is across the rest of the summer. And all the best for the Taniwha in a few weeks' time.
Cheers. Thanks very much.
Good job. Thanks, Gretchen.
Bye.
Now, sweet, just like that, another version of our Quick Connect podcast. And just to finish up, all the best for those people that are out there adventuring, getting amongst it. And the Waka 100's on this weekend, mountain biking in Rotorua. So hopefully it's have some fun, and the course is as dry as it can be. And for everyone else, keep in touch, and we'll look forward to catching up with you next time. Cheers, team. Over and out.